We're going to talk about the school budget and all the things that just happened at the school committee meeting. And I need to figure out how to share this. Hey, Carl, can you hear me? I just want to make sure you guys can hear me first before I start saying stuff. Oh, good. Yeah, so that was a real sad meeting. It was depressing. And I think, although she was right, the award for bravest of the meeting goes to member Keegan when she dropped her "what school should we close" comment, because that was unfortunately dead on the nose, and it's going to be a dark time when it gets to the point where we have to talk about that. And I think we're there. I'm trying to share this to Facebook. But it doesn't seem to want to let me. So, post. All right. So I think there was a lot of things that happened in this meeting, and it was. Let's start with one of the comments I posted earlier from Nick, that 51% of juniors and seniors in advanced coursework, and he kept saying we got to displace or dispel this belief that 70%, the 70%, he kept saying the 70%. The 70% he was talking about was the nonsense narrative that's being pushed by Maxwell and Duggan and others, that 70% of our kids can't read or aren't going into college or are failing out of college. And if you have 51% of your juniors and seniors involved in advanced placement work, to Nick's point, you're not going to expect 51% of them to fail, or even 50% of the 51% to do poorly. And I mean, I think it was a good call on his part to ask to have that data added to the next agenda. So it'll be nice to see where that goes and how it gets there. I just, looking at it from that perspective was a good plug for the school, because we need all the wins we can get. Well, that sucks. It won't show up live. All right. Well, anyways, so at one point in the meeting, again with DeZoglio, asked the mayor if he was going to support them asking for free cash to kind of fund the budget, because the punchline of the meeting was they've already planned for 30 cuts, classroom sizes of 26 to 30, sub-separates of 8 with one teacher, and it was still only about $1.2 million in savings. And it's becoming clear that they're looking at some major cuts. I think that Nick was trying to, and I mean, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was trying to kind of put it back on the council. We need to be able to invest in schools. We need to be able to keep them safe. Everyone has agreed that we need to be able to keep them safe. making these cuts is not going to do that. Asking the mayor if he's going to support free cash usage when he knows better that it's not up to the mayor, it's up to the council. And I don't know if you guys were paying attention, but you may have saw them last week pitch a fit over trash and the trash tipping fees for $800K that almost turned off trash pickup across the city. So if they're upset about that, what are they going to do when we ask them for $5 million ish to fund our schools? They did make a good point. I don't remember who made it, but about asking for constellations. And it was about trying to get free cash funding specifically for Constellations. Constellations is a program we looked at back when I was in the school committee to come in and basically run the special ed department. They would, have their staff, they would set up systems, and we would be able to do more than I think we can now. Special ed is a tough area to hire in. It's impossible to find teachers. And it's just something that Methuen, despite getting a bad rap from some people, has a pretty decent handle on. Let's share this to the Methuen politics page. Then it becomes a point to talk about, going to the council and asking them for about $2 million, I think it was, to fund that program. But that program's supposed to set us up long-term for savings. Whether or not that works, this is Methuen, and we could screw up a free lunch. So we would need to be actually willing to follow those directions and follow that narrative. They hit on the GIC. So the GIC is the Group Insurance Commission, which is the state's group insurance, and there are a bunch of municipalities on it. Last count, I think it was somewhere like in the 30s. I know Lowell's on it as one for an example, but the mayor tried to get an emergency provision on there so he could explore the transition. It was stalled by the council. I know that the unions are not for it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know the right answer, but I do know what we're doing is not working. And I think that had the mayor gone about the conversation for GIC a little bit more transparently and proactively, he wouldn't have hit the roadblock that was the unions, which I'm sure swayed the council and slowing down that particular resolution so he could go out and do those preliminary exploratory things. So at one point, Willette did take a shot at them, at the unions, for not being out at the State House protesting over healthcare and over funding and everything else. And I think that he is unaware of how often people have things to do. He wants us emailing, and that's the consistent and repetitive narrative is talk to your union, talk to your reps, it's state delegation. And that's great. We know that. But here we are. So there was also a nod to some other savings opportunities that were presented, privatization of janitorial services, which was something that was discussed again back when I was on the council at the end of my term. And, there was projected savings in there. I don't know what was ratified in executive session tonight, but I'd be surprised if it was producing the same savings that privatization was. Yes, privatization comes with a slew of its own issues, but the school made a decision. It was a unanimous vote, so apparently it's a good thing. So we have to wait and see what that says. I haven't seen the contract yet, but I know that anticipating funding for this back when I was at the table, they were talking about $1.5 million to $2 million in savings over the course of 3 years. There was an option to have the employees pay more towards insurance. Yeah. So in order to have the insurance split shifted, you have to go through the what is it, PERC, I think is the acronym. It's the union group that manages those splits. And there are already 2 different splits. I don't know what they are offhand, but I think 72-28 or something like that. And the other one is closer to 60-40. But again, all that would have to go through collective bargaining. And from my understanding, having talked to a lot of people in different unions, the city side unions are still real upset over the whole taking zeros back. I don't remember who was mayor when they last took the zeros. They had to go out and say, everyone take a zero. We have tough budgets. And the school didn't do it. Now, there were lots of reasons why the school didn't do it. They have been notoriously neglected and abused for years. But that is what has really kind of driven a continued wedge between union side and city side, school side and city side. They talked about the IT consolidation as a savings opportunity, but fun fact, nobody in those conversations talking about IT consolidation gave a single statement, the mayor included, about how that was going to save anybody money. They never did it. No one said a single thing about what the savings was going to be. And again, and I had this conversation with DJ, so this is nothing. He hasn't heard from me, but I think any opportunity for consolidation kind of went out the window when it was done with executive order. The school gets preferential pricing because they're an education authority. We're a Google-based system. The city's we're a Microsoft-based system. They're very different. We are 8 times the size of the city on the school side. And if anything, they're looking to try to take resources from the school because at one point, I think it may have been Lewis, the IT director, stood at the podium and said they had 30 tickets one day and it was very busy. 30 tickets is a morning at the school when you're talking just the quantities of people. I think any opportunity there is probably dead for a while. Martha at one point made a good point. They were talking about 15 general ed teachers was 1.2 million. And that just kind of puts into perspective what the impact is. So what people don't realize is even when you say 1.5 million and you say 15 teachers, that's the teacher salary, plus you got to calculate the unemployment insurance and all the other stuff that goes into it. So it's not just chopping salary. Every layoff costs you money. So it's a funny little formula. And then she kind of hit the nail on the head. We knew this was coming. Why didn't we plan? Desaglio said we knew it was coming. We all knew it was coming. We all talked about it at the last budget cycle. We knew this was coming. We knew this was going to be worse. Why didn't we plan? Methuen doesn't plan. We just don't. It's not something we do. And wake up, computer. It's not something we've done. And the mayor has tried to make some moves, albeit probably not in the same way I would have gone about it, but to each his own. And we have done nothing to really grow our commercial base to not leave ourselves in this position. We knew about this last year. A couple of them said it, like I said, but the school can't do much to do this. This is on the mayor and the council. It's on every mayor and every council that has come before. Methuen has not done much to get out of its own way to increase cash flow. It's just it, and Martha said at one point she's not blaming anyone for this, that she's a better person than I am. I would, throw the blame at everyone who's come before. This is not something that is living in a vacuum. This is not new. We want to blame the state. We want to blame, the governor. Yeah, the governor's budget has been garbage now for 4 cycles. And inflation rates and everything that's happening in DC is really screwing up how much stuff costs. But the reality is, even if those costs had remained the same and it was just our colas, we'd still be short because things are growing and Methuen is not. And it becomes a very tough position. There was a lot of talk about safety. The guidance counselors, the psychologists, they're all in the first round of cuts. And if you think getting rid of the people who respond to the issues is going to make the issue stop, I mean, that's just not how anything works. I mean, we're talking about safety, and then we're removing the safety pieces. And again, like I just saw one of the school committee members joined over here in the panel. It's not them. It's not the school committee saying, forget it, we don't care about safety. It's how do we get to this ridiculous number and make it so we can keep our buildings open? Otherwise, you're going to end up in the position that Lori mentioned, where you're talking about closing a school, which is realistically probably where they're going to need to end up. I don't know how they do it because the rest of the schools are pretty full, but it's getting to a point where at what point is safety becoming the problem? At what point is 30 kids in a class size, sub-separates of 8 kids with 1 teacher, and then they're still 3.2 million away from where they need to be? It's already unsafe. Where we're at is talking about major foundational changes. I mean, there was a few people talk about, the money may come. Yeah, it may. It may not. We don't know when or if. It could be August. It could be June. It could be sometime in July. Hell, it could be November. We don't know. And, sending emails to your representatives at the delegation is great, but it's one person. At one point, Mary Beth asked about dates for the budget. It's funny because this year, the budget is due 2 weeks earlier than it normally is. The question for that is why? And when the mayor was asked about it, he reminded everybody that the budget cycle is set by the chair of the city council. The rumor circulating right now is that it's 2 weeks earlier to accommodate for vacation plans for some of the counselors. I've reached out and asked a few of them, and two of them have just refused to answer the question. And one of them said, we don't all talk, so they didn't really know. It's an interesting impact, and this is going to have a massive impact on the school, because if we have to issue 60-something layoff notices 2 weeks earlier, that's devastating. That's devastating while our kids are still in the building, while people are still trying to get through the end of the school year. But the reality is, and Ian said it, even if we delayed it a week or we delayed it 2 and the council agreed to do that, it doesn't change anything. Because do you think the state's going to wrap this up in a week? Because he didn't. I don't. Again, it could be August. It could be November. For all we know, the state could go into a supplemental budget and they could, be 3 months out. I worked for the state for 5 years. It wouldn't be the first time it's happened, even in my tenure there. So, it's interesting to see what's going to happen. And then there was even a comment made about eliminating a whole specialist program at the K-8s, which would mean like getting rid of art or getting rid of music or tech, or not tech, what's it called now? Media or gym, which they can't get rid of gym because it's a DESE requirement. So, I mean, even still, but they said, you're looking at about $350K in savings, which doesn't do anything to move the needle. So how do you change this? How do you move that needle without something major? Yeah, I know that there was some talk about public participation, but because of the school committee going dark after the end of their executive session, they came back. Vice DeZoglio said we'll be back at 6:05, and then I'm assuming that something broke, and it was time before they realized it, where they could recess and figure it all out. But yeah, it's unfortunate that we're here. It's unfortunate that this is the budget. I think people need to realize that this is going to be bad. And tomorrow night, the city council is going to meet, amongst other things, to do the 800K vote to move free cash so we can keep our trash getting picked up. But also, the mayor's still looking for approval to do an early retirement package. I'm curious what's going to happen when the council realizes that you're going to have to fund that retirement package out of free cash, because I don't think most of them have realized that. And I think the mayor is hoping they go for it, but they seem to have this desire to hoard the cash instead of investing it. And I mean, it's great to have 20 million in free cash, but we have systemic problems across the city that we could have fixed over the years, but we didn't. All right. What else? What else do we want to talk about? It's too bad because we get more people when we do this on Facebook. So anybody, anything? I hope that when the budget goes into the Tribune tomorrow, that people see it. I hope that, we can get involved. I hope that people go to the council. There's going to be cuts citywide this year. This is not another one of those years where you can just abuse the schools and everything is fine and moves on. People protest and then it goes back to being normal. In order to make it through this budget cycle, there's going to be cuts everywhere. PD, police department, fire, DPW, throughout City Hall. This is going to be a budget cycle that the mayor is going to hurt his reelectability. And there's no two ways about that, because he's going to have to cut departments that win elections. The fire department, and I've said it 1,000 times, the fire department wins elections. And they're not going to take kindly to being cut like that and having their overtime budgets cut. Same with the PD and same with the DPW. And it sucks, but the mayor's in that position where he has to go after the entire city to balance the budget, because we're poor. We don't have the money because we don't plan, because we've done nothing to beef up our economic development in the city. And there's only so many car washes and so many self-storage units and so many apartment complexes. Actually, someone said tonight, why do we keep doing and building? Actually, I think it was Martha. How do we keep expanding? And she named off a bunch of the complexes that we're going in when we can't take care of the stuff we already have. And it makes you think. And where do you go from there? And how do you get the housing crisis addressed while addressing the funding crisis for the schools and everything else? It's an epic disaster. And our economic development department, I mean, last thing that we remember really talking about was Reebok. Yes, everyone toted bringing the Claddagh here, but the Claddagh was a wash. I mean, it restaurant in, restaurant out, and that's great. It's better than it sitting vacant and having nothing, or that poor guy being trapped there because he wanted to retire. Like, what are we doing, and how are we positioning the city to bring in more income? How are we generating tax revenue that's not coming out of our pockets, homeowners? Like, what are we doing next? We'll see. Trying to see if I can line up a little guest. But it's tough. So, any other questions out there? It's too bad that this doesn't connect better to Facebook, so we could have more engagement and more. But what are you gonna do? Says good night. So I guess that's a no. I guess he doesn't want to come on. That's okay. All right. Maybe we do this again tomorrow after the city council meeting, and we see what happens. That'll be interesting to see how that goes. Inside Methuen, I still want to make this more than just politics because there's a lot going on in the city. I do have one person who's interested in doing the sports. I would love to find somebody who wants to do like a business write up, like go to a business once a week, talk to the owner, write about the business, just kind of advertise local businesses. Anything you guys want to write something, let me know, and we can make it work. I mean, these articles go out, and between all of the social medias, they're getting close to 2,000 views. People are seeing them. People are engaging. People are sending messages. The other folks who have written have gotten messages. It's a good opportunity. And my only ask is, if it's fact-based and you're saying it's fact, tell us where you got it. And if it's an opinion, we just label it opinion. And other than that, I mean, it's carte blanche. And, I had the conversation with Alejandro the other day, and him and I have not always seen eye to eye, but I think we, despite our different approaches, have a very similar objective. And I told him, like, I don't want this to be something that's just, me and my friends and spinning a narrative, because then I become what I don't want to be. So, anybody who wants to write something, the rules are there. And if you're willing to follow them, I'm willing to publish it. And we'll see, if people want to do it, we're here, and it could be a good time. But otherwise, I think that will be the end of that. And we'll try this again tomorrow. In the words of Ryan DeZoglio, good night, Methuen.